Throughout the 2010s, the horror genre has had some true standout games, like Resident Evil 7 and some FNAF games, depending on who you are and who you ask. But one particular game that everyone unanimously agrees is a terrifying piece of horror is 2013's Outlast. A game by development team Red Barrels consisting of multiple people from different AAA game studios in the horror genre. Due to the small group of people making the game, it was in development hell for quite a while, just barely getting enough funding in the end to finish development and release it in September of 2013. Even with such a small budget, however, the game's overwhelming success led to 2 sequels, one being a pretty underwhelming hillbilly style game that completely misses the whole point of what made the original game so memorable, and also an online game that is pure fun unless you're playing with some of the most daft people. This is called The Outlast Trials. There's also a DLC called The Whistleblower. Also, considering how low the budget the game had this is an absolute masterclass of the genre. It introduced extremely unique and abstract ideas yet to be seen. And honestly, it's still a top 5, maybe top 3 horror games of all time for me. The graphics still hold up better than most games released like 3 years ago, and the horror still remains effective nearly 12 years later. In Outlast, we play as Miles Upshaw, a professional journalist or investigative reporter sent by a guy working under the Morkoff Corporation. One could call him a whistleblower. But as Miles explores the depths of the HE double hockey sticks he calls Mount Massive Asylum, we find out how truly nefarious the Murkoff Corporation is. It's also probably worth mentioning now that this game has some of the most over-the-top gore and gruesome imagery you'll see in any of these games. Unless I cover like Terrifier 3 or something like that, this is probably the most gory, messed up thing we'll ever cover on this channel. So if you're easily prone to vomiting or sickness or anything to do with not liking gore, I wouldn't recommend this one. We drive up a twisting road in the middle of nowhere, immediately isolating us from the rest of the world. We collect our camcorder and exit from the car, and the atmosphere immediately feels extremely silent to an eerie level. And if you look through windows, you can see people watching us from above, casting a shadow on windows. Unfortunately, the main entrance is blocked off, so we have to improvise by climbing up the scaffolding to get up to a window. Right away, we can tell something is immediately off. Doors around us slam shut, knowing we are being watched and completely surrounded. Oddly enough though, nobody is actually attacking us, more so running away and acting extremely vulnerable or scared by the mere sight of us. It's genuinely a great idea that delves into the morals of the Murkoff Corporation. Some people rule over the asylum and some people haunt the halls in there, while others cower in fear, hiding under beds or locked in toilets. Basically just hiding away from the horrors deep in the pits of Mount Massive. We reach a door and dozens of heads lie still on the walls, torn from their bodies. Others hang from the ceiling, left disregarded by whoever did all of this. Only one soldier remains alive, but on the verge of death. However, he is able to sputter enough of his own blood out to command us to leave the asylum. We get a solid idea as to who did all this when we open the door to see a big fat guy with an extremely disfigured face walk through a door. Glad we didn't have to deal with him.
Little pig.
We are thrashed about in the clutches of this guy, Chris Walker, who was formerly an American soldier in the Iraq War, but after he went, well, insane, he cut his nose, lips and top of his head off to open his apparent third eye because he thinks he's Doctor Strange or something, I don't really know. Looking at his early concepts in the first trailer released for Outlast, Chris Walker was originally going to be a peg-legged pirate-looking guy. He was also going to be a lot less plus-sized, I guess, while the skin marks all over his body remained from the original concept. They changed a hell of a lot from his initial design. I also think presenting Chris like this for the first time immediately presents him as a terrifying antagonist. We cannot fight back against him due to his massive size and body weight of an Indian elephant. We fade in and out of consciousness while an inmate called Father Martin checks us out and calling us his apostle sent by the gods. Clearly there's more going on here than initially presented. While Father Martin presents himself as this great religious leader of the asylum, it's so clear he's just as insane, if not more, as everybody else trapped in here. The straitjacket straps forming a cross well elaborate on him more, though we awake and have to get a keycard to open the security office. Getting there is easy enough, but getting there back... Unfortunately, when we actually get back to the security office, Father Martin shuts off the power, so we have to delve deep into the basement to restart the generator. This section is honestly great. After everything we've seen, we get our first experience with the inmates, or common enemy. Most of them have extremely unique designs from each other due to the morphogenic engine. More on that a bit later. This section also works as testing everything you've learned up to this point in the game. You have to navigate the darkness with the camcorder. You have to use hiding spots to avoid the inmate getting off your back. It's also really well crafted and a solid build-up of horror, preparing us for the grander sequences in the game. Anyhow, after turning on the generator, we return back upstairs to the security room and open up the doors to get out the asylum. Unfortunately, it turns out Father Martin didn't want us to leave just yet, as we have more to see, apparently, and it shows us a monitor of soldiers and Murkoff mercenaries being brutally taken out like Patrick in that one episode of SpongeBob. This is the Wall Rider, basically a spirit made from science that is basically just made from the morphogenic engine. And by that, it's not actually like a ghost or anything. It's like a ton of nanotes controlled by one person that will get explained later in the game. More on that later, obviously. This is also who Father Martin worships, and we are the apostle to the Wall Rider. There's also multiple times throughout the game where we get to see the Wall Rider in action, but only through the infrared lighting on the camera. It's only now I've just realised I haven't properly mentioned the infrared. That kind of separates this game from others. The basic rundown is the camera is similar to the 2006 Spanish movie Wreck, or the American version Quarantine with Dexter's sister for some reason. It also greatly increases the horror. The change in lighting gives everyone we see a ghastly appearance with pure white eyes that piercing the darkness. This works particularly well with sections where our camera is disabled, so when we get the camera back and a swarm of inmates surround us, it comes way out of nowhere and gives you a really bad scare. The camera also gives you a pretty great sense of dread, where it is obviously powered by batteries, so if we forget to grab batteries randomly found in the environments when we walk around in pure darkness, then we have no clue where we're going and what's standing right in front of us or not. We awake in what is supposedly Father Martin's padded room, with engravings and scribbles all over the walls. A nice guy comes out and for some reason opens the door for us, then just runs off never to be seen again, so we can continue on our journey out of the asylum. In doing so, however, we meet these two lovely guys with their mother gooseberries out. They're naked is what I'm saying. It's actually kind of creepy listening to them talk about how they want our body parts and such. It gets worse when, by the time we get over to their side, they're gone. I'm sure we'll run into them eventually. We reach the showers, but in doing so, we run into Chris Walker again, who breaks through the glass and chases us up through the vents, leading back outside. We try running through the fire, but go flying out the window onto a pile of rotting corpses. But since Chris is apparently just as persistent as us, he follows us all the way down to the sewers. After a while of navigating up and down ladders, we finally reach the male ward and get Chris right off our back. However, all of a sudden a group of inmates begin to chase us endlessly through the halls of the male ward, so we have to keep blocking and unblocking doors to clear a path safe enough for us to get away. It all seems hopeless until we reach a dead end, with what sounds like a friendly voice calling down to us, telling us to get in the dumbwaiter. I'm sure we're safe from here.
Need the right choice here, buddy.
Turns out the safe sanctuary promised to us was a lie, as Dr. Richard Traeger knocks us to the ground and straps us into a wheelchair. Dr. Traeger was once a doctor who worked at Mount Massive Asylum, but it turns out if Chris Walker is the Superman, then Traeger is the Homelander. He was a genuine monster who would sexually assault people, causing him to be arrested and put under testing for the morphogenic engine. But during his arrest, he went straight into the paper shredder, leaving him with the Greg Universe fade. If we looked around closer earlier, there was a sign that said first the fingers, then the balls, then the tongue. So when we're locked in a bathroom and he cuts our index and wedding finger off, we have to wiggle around to get free from our restraints. We get up and leave Traeger hot on our trail. We have to navigate around his floor and turn on the elevator to reach the exit Traeger teased us with earlier. After we reach the elevator, he beats us to the bottom floor somehow, and unlocks the elevator and starts to attack us, but this could have gone better. With Traeger finally dealt with, we have to make our way back to the exit by clearing the sprinkler system, because an inmate for some reason sets the place ablaze. It furthers the idea that some of these people were just victims to the morphogenic engine, like this guy who just wants to die by setting the kitchen on fire. Unfortunately, we have to stop this to get to Father Martin. We get multiple sections where Chris Walker chases us around the outside of the asylum, genuinely giving you a sense of terror since the batteries will naturally run out because of how far a distance you have to travel. We also have to squeeze through tiny holes specifically designed for us to just barely avoid Chris. The twins from earlier return, and considering they're walking around naked, they've been presented as some of the most literate and intelligent of all of the monsters we've fought so far. The only ones besides Father Martin are able to say full sentences. However, as we make a large dive across a chasm, our camera unfortunately falls down through a hole in the floor. I think that this section overall works at creating horror really well. Exploring the darkness with no idea what's 2 feet in front of us. Navigating around empty halls is horrifying. Anyway, we reach our camera, escape back to the room, and we finally get back to the higher levels of the asylum. This might be weird to say, but considering everything we've been through throughout this game, the higher levels feel oddly warm and welcoming. Unfortunately, the people in these halls don't share that quality. So while we're in the theatre getting the 3rd floor key, the twins break in and hunt us down. We narrowly evade them and make our way to the chapel, where Father Martin and his supporters surround him. He lets us take the elevator key to leave the asylum, finally letting us leave. Even the twins are chill now, and while Father Martin lets himself die on a cross, we get to head to the elevator. Nothing can get in our way. We narrowly evade Chris and make our way back to the elevator, and we start going down to the exit, but it turns out, unfortunately, the elevator has different plans and sends us down deeper into the abyss of the asylum, to the lowest level, where all of the experiments would take place. The new landscape feels extremely fresh and unique, and very cool as well, to say the least. After seeing all the destroyed run-down buildings of Mount Massive Asylum, showing a sleek, brightly lit lab suggesting how Murkoff and Mount Massive used the asylum, it's very unnerving and disturbing when you think about it. Anyhow, we explore around and the Wall Rider immediately starts chasing us through the bright hallways until we reach a pair of doors. After everything Chris has done, after everyone he had killed, he had failed. He did all of this and ended up failing to the thing he swore to protect from the world. From no matter what the cost. As Miles said, he escaped from one hell. Let's hope he can escape from another. Let's hope he's got that third eye I was talking about as well. I think it's about time we talk about Rudolf Wernicke. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, he was a Nazi soldier who started the experiments in the 50s called MK Ultra, an actual event in time where people would, in the Civil War, experiment on people to see if they could alter emotions or something. Stranger Things talks about it as well. He tasks us with destroying the Wall Rider by unplugging Billy, the person the Wall Rider lives off of, and turning off the power. This will kill the guy. And we do so while the Wall Rider is hot in pursuit. But in trying to escape him, Miles attempts a jump. And we eventually kill Billy. And the Wall Rider starts to fling us around the area like a ragdoll or kick the buddy or something, and enters our body. I'm sure this doesn't mean anything. Anyhow, we start to limp back up to the surface, just barely making our way, fueled by adrenaline and the concept of escape. We trudge towards the exit and... So, after everything we've been through and survived, we get shot and killed by mercenaries, with the reveal that we have become the Wall Rider's new host by Wernicke. And the Wall Rider just absolutely rips and tears through everyone in the room with a black screen indicating so, I guess. And we now know the Wall Rider will now thrive from our body, and basically, we lost. I think Miles up here as a protagonist is extremely well written. They're able to present him as both sarcastic and comedic, but also absolutely terrified by his situations. It's funny because he doesn't even have any voice lines, it's just how they presented him in the notes. You also feel sympathetic for the character's pure agony by the voice acting. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but it's all performed by Sean Baychu. And when I mean voice acting, I mean this. And that was Outlast. You could say it isn't perfect, but I think as a horror game, it is pretty damn close. It's able to have voice lines and over-the-top gore to make itself both horrific but comedic at points, making the game of a hell of a lot memorable in the same place. I don't know if I'll ever cover it, but I remember Outlast 2 having this problem. It has no sense of humour and takes everything way too seriously. Also, the loss of a silent protagonist makes it feel like it's a hell of a lot more in the part of the Where's My Wife subgenre, to the point it needs to be a Steam tag. The open spaces make the chases that are supposed to feel intense feel extremely forgiving compared to the tight, compact walls of the asylum. Like, one of the chases, or most of them even so, is just you being circled on a village with a ton of places to go. It just feels kind of boring at points and not that scary. I do have a lot more problems with the game that are more than this, so just, if anyone wants to see a video in it, I don't know, like subscribe or like or comment, I guess. With that, that's me done. See ya.